Hey guys, welcome to this relatively long video, but we think the topic fits really the length of the video because it's quite important, right, René?
Definitely is. And before we actually start into it, maybe a few comments here and there. First, if you have not seen the article that we talk about, actually head over to overtake.gg, read up on the article. We sent PMR questions that we wanted to have answered about their launch, about the game and the future, obviously. They answered, and basically we do this video interview as kind of as a follow-up because we still had questions. We wanted to clarify a few things. So no, this is not PR stuff. This is not a bought campaign, whatever. It's actually us sending questions and doing this interview, and we're very happy that they actually agreed to give us an interview that's within gaming in the current space, in the current meta of industry, not normal, which is kind of the interlude to the second part of it. This is a hard-headed discussion. Obviously, there are a lot of opinions about PMR. I totally get that. And I mean, we openly talked about being disappointed, right? But in the comment sections, more than happy to argue and discuss. But do me a favor, do not insult people behind that, because behind every product, whether it's our videos or their game whatsoever, are people working and putting their passion in. And it's not fair insulting them directly. Like, if you have a problem with the game, let us know, and we're more than happy to discuss, but keep it at a proper level of discussion.
We also talked about Ian Bell, but we had Kevin Boland. Sorry, Boland, not Bollard. The chief developer, you could call him, but he will also introduce himself. So let's just get back to the interview and have fun with it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and head over to overtake.gg, as René said, to support us. And have fun with this insightful and quite interesting interview. Let's go.
Kevin, first of all, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
I see you got lovely sunshine outside. That's very rare for you guys, we know, so we appreciate your time.
Very rare for me in Ireland. I'm sitting in my office, so I am, and it's like a furnace. And I want to open the windows, but I'm also aware that it's too bright when I open the windows right now. So it's great.
Yeah. Kevin, this kind of interview is basically a follow-up on what we already had on the website, right? We did a written interview with you before, and we will obviously reference that today a bit. So in case anyone out there did not read that yet, head over to overtake.gg, obviously read the article. And then basically this is in addition to that to clarify a few points, right?
Perfect, yeah.
Kevin, maybe we'll start with telling people what you actually do at Straight4.
Okay, so I'm CDO. I spend the day running around after people, making sure that everybody's able to get their job done. So responsibility for the game actually fundamentally lies with me. I'm not going to hide away from it. If it was a massive successful launch, I'd have the glory. If it wasn't a great launch, I have to own the fact that mistakes were made. So I can sit and I can say, oh, yeah, it was all right. Or I can be honest and say that we were a little bit disappointed. So that's what my job is I'm CDO. It's kind of I don't know if it's a made up title or not, right? But on the other side, I'm also kind of the CTO. So I spend a lot of time head deep in what's called GPUs and trying to get the best out of certain things. And I know the graphics ain't great, but day to day I work there, and I was also, I don't know, can I turn my camera? After we went and visited you, I took on a personal mission to turn around and start to sort out all the wheels. So I decided I was impressed with the collection that you guys had when we met at Gamescom, but it was an eye opener. I don't know if you remember that. It kind of, even when we went to you at Gamescom, what we should have learned a bigger lesson from that, which was what I mentioned at the start of the interview, which was that we had somehow managed to find ourselves in a little bit of an echo chamber. We'd got our feedback loop wrong, which meant that we weren't seeing things that we should have been seeing. I used it in another interview, but it was something my daughter's been working on in school, is statistics. I know it's a really silly thing, right? And it was this plane, they were doing these, generals were all gathered around, and they were looking at a diagram of all the planes, and they were showing all the bullet holes for all the planes that came back. Have you ever seen this?
Yeah, I know that one. Yeah.
And all the generals straight away turned around and says, well, there's where we need to protect. Look where all the holes are. And they filled in all the holes. But that was the wrong thing completely, because they're the planes that came back. The planes that didn't come back was where the holes were, where all the damage was. Now I know that the reason I bring that up, and it sounds silly that I say that, is because that's the way it felt. We had built an echo chamber where we were getting positive feedback the whole time to us, yeah, but we weren't seeing the bullet holes, the real bullet holes, and so we started focusing on the wrong things. Yeah, we were looking at the aesthetic of the plane that came back, not the plane that had crashed. Does that make sense? So we were like, oh, we need to fix this, and that wasn't the important bit. Yeah. So like we talked about our tire model, like, you know, where our tire model started to fail was when we went over the limit. It wasn't a progressive, you know, going from grip to slip. It would just be sudden. And we thought that was right. You know, we started to feel that was great. And then certain cars was great. And then we go, you know, we were making, I was even making an excuse for myself. Oh, well, the tires weren't heated up enough, you know. And I wasn't reading into the fact that the temperature, the tires were reacting too quickly to the temperatures. Does that make sense? And they were overheating and doing all the things wrong. And I was like, oh, someone's using softs when they should be using mediums. And we found ourselves in that echo chamber or loop that we didn't actually see that we were in a place that people weren't going to enjoy it. Yeah. I feel that the physics where we were was in a great spot. The physics engine to me, I'm really proud of it, but we just didn't get the tire model and other things like, you know, our assists, the traction control kicked in too early and it made it feel a bit more artificial than it would. And we just got little things wrong because we were basically looking at the wrong bullet holes or the ones that we didn't see. And it wasn't until we went out into the community that we could see everything falling, you know. And I know that's the way it is. So I know you asked me what my job is and I just went off on a complete tangent there. So sorry. I'm so keen to express what I want to express. So my job is ultimately to be responsible for PMR and getting it out to everybody. I have a team of guys, but ultimately it's with me and senior management that responsibility sits with.
Before we dive into the first topic, we might actually have to remind people what it was regarding your visit, right? So before Gamescom, some of you out there might know that we do the Overtake Community Night, where basically everyone can come around to our office and try out different gear, like wheels, pedals, whatever, have some fun, meet people from the industry. So there were different publishers, developers, car manufacturers. It's just a big party. And back then, you guys allowed us to have a pre-release build on site, right? Similar to the Gamescom build that was used a day later at the opening of Gamescom for people to try. And obviously with us, and you see that in the background, having a ton of gear due to our hardware reviews, every setup was very different. So we worked with you guys, right? Kevin, you had been here on making sure that all the steering wheels work. And let's be real, that's also something that we had to realize, right? It's not like back in the days where the only thing you had to support was Logitech Momo Force and the G25, and then you were Gucci, right? And everything was running. Nowadays, it's a ton of hardware that has to somehow run and work, and they all feel different out of the box. So it's even harder to directly compare them in a title, right? And that was the reason where the story came from. So just that everyone knows what we're talking about. But Kevin, you already said in the end, the ball comes to you, right, in terms of responsibility. And you said already one important point that was being disappointed. And the first question in our written interview was around why was PMR released in the state it was released, right? And you told us that there was no outside pressure, as in, it wasn't giants deciding now, hey, you have to release and there's no other way. But instead that it was a decision from your team and your leadership, right? So can you try to maybe explain a bit of like, was there no one in the team that said like, hey, I mean, I come from a development team, you know that you normally always think there could be 2 months more and it would be better. What was the actual atmosphere, the moment that you were like 1-2 days before the launch?
Panic. Let me try and describe it. I think we knew. See, I'm going to try to be really honest. There was moments of pure beauty within the game. We thought, yeah, we've got it. This is amazing. And then we turn around and we'd maybe, we'd start messing with the hypercars, and then there would be an issue with the what's called the electrics kicking in, and the starting of the cars and stuff. And then we're like, oh, we'll just fix that one thing and it'll all be all right. and then we just go and then we fix that one thing, and that'll be all right, you know. So with the GT3s, they always felt a bit. Every time you took your foot off the pedal, off the throttle, the back of the car was going on us, you know. And we thought, oh well, we need to sort. So one of the things we have, right, is our force feedback's off the rack, so it's not just off the contact patch, which is different. So we have to mechanically simulate the whole way up the drivetrain, and you know, so you think, oh, we've got that fundamentally correct. You know, it all starts at the tire model, but you know, if you had the kingpin wrong or the calipers all set wrong, you know, it would have different feelings. So what we found was is we were moving some things, and some cars were starting to feel great, but the others weren't, and we were sharing tire models also a little bit more globally, and it was causing we'd fix one thing and break another. Does that make sense? And you know, one of the big innovations is coming with like the hypercars is that we already realized that we have, you know, the Acura, you know, it revs at a higher, it has like, I think it's 9,000 RPM, while all the rest are like 8,000, which we need to sort out the gear ratio. So we know that that's going to get sorted in the next couple of days. But because of the way that works, it actually makes the Acura a little bit underpowered because it's kicking into a higher gear, you know, way too quickly, and it's slowing the car down. And we know that, so we're going to fix it. But you know, we kind of shared the same gearbox, if that makes sense, and we shouldn't have, because we were ambitious. We were maybe having 14 different car classes and 86 cars was a little ambitious, right? But we felt that we had to, because we were saying we were a fully released product, and that we were what we were asking of people, and that the content was really important, that we had this broad spectrum, and we leaned in on the past that we had that. Now, I can't turn around and say maybe there's a little bit of the team where, but what we were in that phase of, we were trying to get out TRCs, right? You know, so we were going into Sony and we're going to Xbox, and we were having other problems such as, you know, Xbox's cloud save wasn't working right. Do you know what I mean? We had one thing I remember, and people would have saves on Steam Cloud, and then they go and load, and they were getting, you know, we were kind of focusing on, as I said, the wrong bullet holes. We were trying to get that done, and the people were being kind of starting to become vocal. There's something wrong here, and we thought we had a magic bullet, right? There was something broke that was causing it all, and I think I touched on it, like how the force feedback disappeared at launch on console. So what fundamentally happened was, we'd done an optimization for convolves, and I believe it was around the audio, and it happened between Gamescom and SimRacing Expo, and we turned on accidentally fast mat. Now that sounds like, oh yeah, what's that? You know, and everyone, right? What that actually is it's a non-standard in which it allows the mat to work more efficiently because it knows it's in a fixed number domain. Yeah. Now, the biggest problem with that is that sense, yeah, it's all reasonable, except when you're in a physics engine, which you're using floating point arithmetic, which is really, really small values at a really fast engine. In a car, we claim that we do 720. We do 720, so we do when we're doing all the tire simulation. But the engine simulations actually go up to 7,020 hertz. Yeah. Now, them numbers are tiny. With fast mat, it was breaking domain, but also with fast mat and the intrinsics it uses, it does be different on each runtime component. So it'd be different on one PC to another because of the chipset. It would also be different in console. Now it had slipped through because we were in a release cycle where we would have a branch where people would work day where they could check in, and then we would pass things over to the release branch. Does that make sense? When they've been QA'd. And somewhere along the line, something got missed. So we thought, oh, great, we know what it is. And we brought out the patch 1.0, 1.5.0.01, I think it was. I don't even know the namings because they're mad, right? But we turned it off, and then we realized we put in a safety feature, so we did for the force feedback, so when it snapped, it didn't, because I actually dislocated my thumb. I was playing on that wheel there, the Fanatec on the PlayStation. I hit the curb, and my hand just went, the wheel shot on my thumb, and I was like, we can't release this, we can't, you know. And I went off, I was like, well, we can't. And I put pressure on the guys, and they put in a system, and it worked on PC, and everyone had tested it, and I'm like, that's grand, let's get it in now. That's my fault, right? At that moment, that became my fault, because I went, let's get it in. But what did I not do? I didn't test it on the console, right? Pushed it through, went through QA. Nobody noticed that we basically had turned the force feedback initially to just being resistance. Does that make sense? So people were driving along, driving smooth. They weren't hitting curbs. Like I hit curbs, I hit walls, so I know. Yeah, they weren't feeling. They thought there was just the wheels and the devices themselves, and there wasn't a feeling that it was there. I went into my kitchen on the day of launch. I sat down with RS50 that I have right on the PlayStation with the kids. Went, there's something wrong here, and then it was like the devil, you know, stuck up. Ian goes, someone on Twitter is saying that there's something wrong here. I went, okay. And I brought the wheel in. I brought it, mounted it up on my desk, checked all the signal stuff. You know, we've unit test apps. It was all fine. And then started the whole, why have we got? And then we went through, we took out all the different change sets until we found that we had this force feedback problem. But then what was like, well, why is it working? Because there's nothing, the code's meant to be agnostic. Yeah. And what we found was this fast mat was on. And then we realized, oh, this is why, and we thought for a second, this is why people are having such a different alien experience to what we were having. I know that sounds silly, but at that moment, you see, and the reason I'm talking about this is we thought that was a silver bullet and we fixed it. And we're like, yeah, everyone's going, it's all going to be better now. And it wasn't. Because then what we started to realize is that we had, and we listened to the community, that we had, as I said, been looking at the wrong bullet holes. And then we had to just, and you know what I mean? We had the driver factory program, or yeah, factory driver program. Sorry, I don't know why we didn't call it the other thing, right? And you remember me talking about this, and we brought people in, and we invite people in. But what we didn't realize that we had done is I remember watching yourselves drive our game at Zurich, yeah. And you could see me, and I was giving out because there was something wrong with Lola, and everyone was slagging me off because I couldn't keep it straight. I kept feeling the back of the car, and Johnny Herbert was there, and he drove it, and then you guys drove it, and you're, oh yeah, but you were lapping 8 seconds a lap faster than me, right? Because you know what happens? Good drivers adapt.
Yeah. Driving
right?
around the problem.
They drive around the problem. That's exactly it. So what happened was the people in the factory driver who were enjoying the game and were pushing were driving around the problem. And they were giving us good feedback, and they were giving us different, you know, telemetry points and different things to look at. The people that weren't enjoying it were saying it, but they were kind of in the minority. And whether you like it or not, when someone turns around and says to you, oh, look at your new baby, it's really ugly, you're not going to listen to them. Yeah, you're just going to ignore what they're saying. And before you know, you've created a bias where they're like, oh, and you know, maybe they're out to get us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a quick question regarding that, because we all felt, and I talked to all of the creators that were also in Zurich and
Yeah.
also on Gamescom and in our event, we were all under the impression that always the historic cars drove pretty well. And when
Yeah.
it came to the modern stuff like LMDH, GT3, GT4, they didn't feel so great. What is the missing link there? So why were the modern cars so, yeah, let's not call them bad, but why was there such a big discrepancy between the car classes?
Jesus, that's a really good question. If I'm going to be totally honest with you, I think it was that there was two things that fundamentally happened, which sounds really silly. We built the person and the team, the guys that were building the older classes actually started off on the G923 wheels. Yeah. So they had to get the core experience there without all the, you know, high fidelity, what's called direct drive stuff. That was one thing. The other thing is that the older classes don't really have, you know, traction control and all the aids as much, and the aero isn't as important, and as well as that the cars aren't as powerful. Like the speed of the car or the balance of power, it doesn't all just come from the engine. Does that make sense? It wasn't just all torque. Yeah. With the modern cars, it felt that. And I'll be honest with you, it was two different, fundamentally, it was kind of two different tire models, right? Where we found was when we got all the feedback from you guys, we were like, oh, well, we were always saying, and maybe we were saying, oh, well, that's not finished yet. That's not finished yet. That's not finished yet. So we got there, and then we thought we had something really great. And a little bit of us wanted to, you know, have the big reveal at the end, you know, when we tease you all the older cars, and then the new car, you know, you get the game and you go, wow, the modern cars are just as good. And that just didn't happen because we just missed it. And I can turn around and give you pure. That's what happened. We just missed it. We were doing our best. We were working, and I can't blame the team because everybody worked their guts out. Yeah. And even if I look back at myself, I was pulling 20-hour days and working everywhere, you know, and You know what I mean? And like, I'm not just the person who's, I code. I get right down and dirty, and my humor can be completely dependent on what task I'm working on right now. Do you know that type of thing? Well, I think we all get like that when we're really passionate about something. And all I seen was the next problem, and maybe, just maybe, we all were suffering just a little bit about just solving what was in front of us and not taking that step back and seeing everything as a whole. So, when you talk about that, there's a lot of little things that were wrong when we look at our aids. Yeah. Like, so for example, when you look at traction controls kicking in too early, when you look at the temperatures, we put in pre-warming because we thought that's what it was. But what actually turned out when we started working on was the tires they were heating up and cooling down way too quickly. So they were, and we were losing grip because of it. Then when we looked at the tire model, the load balancing seemed to be wrong. We thought that was to do with brake bias, so we were trying to move it back and forth. But it was more a case that what you call it, once the car went over, or the tire went over the limit, it was kind of going over a cliff. So there was no progression coming down. So you weren't feeling, for me, you weren't feeling the car. You weren't feeling that you were losing the grip. You were just either grippy or gone. And we needed to make something more progressive. And that's all sounds great when you say it, but it's, you know what I mean? Now you're getting into the realms of mathematics. That's We have a guy in our team, and he is a genius. But sometimes he uses words where we actually don't know if he's made the word up or not. And he'll say a paragraph, and there's no joking. I would have to. It would take me about 5 minutes to unpack what he said. Yeah, and you know that he's 3 steps ahead of you. But sometimes what you have to do is slow him down, because he'll zone in on something that sounds really important, and then you go, "But does it feel okay?" Yeah, and we kind of missed that. We were so obsessed with getting the math right, yeah, that we forgot that there's still a feeling that needs to be there.
That's
There's
a
still an
huge
art form.
discussion we have in all the comments, because let's be real, we know old games where basically it's a box that has 4 wheels, and then we put like values to it, right, until it
Yeah.
felt great. And nowadays everything has to be calculated correctly, and then still has to feel like the real car. And obviously, with the more calculations we put in, the harder it is to get the feel right in the end. Which was a lot easier back then, right? But
Yeah.
there's one question I would like to get back to regarding the release, because we obviously know Straight4 Studios is not an unexperienced team, right? It's like it's you're not new to the racing sim genre and stuff like that. Since you said pressure, and you said there was no external factors that said that you had to go out and all that, was part of that competition? Because we now know, like, we had years of sim racing, and you remember that, like, over 10 years ago, there was basically
been
nothing.
happening, and then all of a sudden
Yeah,
everybody's doing something.
and yeah, when you released, we had Rensport releasing in the same month, right?
I think GTA 6 was still in March of 2026.
Exactly. Is there anything like was part of that, making sure that you wanted
We
to
missed
be
the
out there
GTA
because you
6
wanted to
window,
face
for
them?
example. Do we think that's like a revenue vacuum? Yeah, no. I'm totally honest with you, right? There was at one point we were looking at a release of May, right? And we actually pushed back and says we couldn't. And then we committed that we would be in November. And we were like being asked, well, but like just at Gamescom, we were still being asked, is November still realistic? And we're like, yeah. And there's a moment where you have to realize that if I delayed the game to now, I'm not sure what would have changed, right? Like, Alex is like, what you call it, he went on about the GT3 cars. So sorry, it's still in my head. You asked that question, I still haven't. I didn't feel like I fully answered. Like, there was engine braking problems as well that we didn't realize, yeah, that got sorted. But if you think about it, if we had delayed the game, I can't say that we would have been better, because I don't know if we would have ever spotted that we had the wrong. We'd have handled the feedback that we had got. Does that make sense?
But then we're basically like, and once again, I refer to the article that we already have. You guys said that there was basically a bubble, and you talked about that already, right? Basically, an echo chamber, making sure that everything you did, you thought was great. So you think that would have not changed because you never had this big negative impact from the outside that you had with the release then?
Well, we have to thank our community, because our community is great for it. But yeah, I don't see. I can't. I'd love to say, oh yeah, if we delayed it, or I could love to turn around and try and lay blame on someone else. But that would not be. That's not fair. That's not fair on all the good people that have there, right? So like, I can turn around and say exactly how I feel about it, which is I don't know if we had been releasing the game, let's say at the end of this month, would we have a better game than we have right now? I will actually say no, we wouldn't. And the reason I'm saying that is because I wouldn't have got all the feedback, right? Once we started to realize that we just had got stuff wrong, and it's hard, right? It really is hard. You're sitting there and you're waiting for all this, positive, and then it doesn't come. Yeah, you poured your heart and soul into something, and then you realized you just got like it wrong. Like a simple thing like the tire model. Like if you go and look at the changes that have come in the patches, they're all in and around the Hadron files, which is data files that people can look at. Yeah. And we just, when you realize that you've got it wrong, and you're not a bad person because you got it wrong. You tried your best and you got it wrong, but now you're committed to making it better. Yeah. I wouldn't have got the feedback. That's as simple as it gets. I don't think we would have got the feedback that we would have got, yeah, if we had delayed the release. Yeah. And I think we made a mistake, in just how we processed the feedback that we were getting through the likes of the programs that we set up. Yeah. We as I said, I don't know is the best answer, right? But what I can hand on heart is there wasn't external. So obviously once we'd committed to the deadline, we had to, obviously, to make sure that, things were going to be there for distribution and all the rest. But at that point, we, you know what I mean? We had committed, and timing wise, we were there with the build at Sim Racing Expo, and we had a few tweaks to do. Yeah, and we felt we had a few tweaks, and we had got kind of actually almost reaffirmed on some of the things that we thought we were doing right. But then I remember being at Sim Racing Expo, and I do remember asking some people to change their driving style. But I was asking because I was trying to confirm a bug with the engine braking. So I was, yeah. And once I'd figured that out, yeah, we were kind of in a good place, and we thought, yeah, we just nailed. We just didn't. I know that sounds. I can't. It's like I feel like I'm a 4-year-old who's been caught, finger painting on their mother's wall. I'm just like, yeah, I did this. I'm sorry, but I'm trying to. I'm trying to articulate what I'm trying to say, but it was difficult to.
Yeah, I remember Sim Racing Expo, and we were also testing the build, and many things just didn't work. The AI was not really working, and the car felt very off. And then we got told by your team as well that something went wrong with the setups of the cars, because the build that loaded through like the Steam cloud or whatever was the wrong build, and it didn't fit with the car setups and stuff. And then you also
Did
told
we not
us,
ask
hey,
you to come back at that point?
Yeah.
And one of the other machines, we found a bug just after launch that, when you were using the streaming software, it was eating up like 2 cores, and that was slowing down. It was interfering with the Hadron cores. So we were like, yeah, let's not use that PC. And we were like, I think we were actually going only use the PC on the right, please. Yeah, because we couldn't figure out what it was. I'm sitting there trying with my laptop.
Yeah. It's actually when you use, for example, NVIDIA to record gameplay, it will also slow down your telemetry on the steering wheel and stuff.
Yeah.
So that definitely has an impact. I can agree. Yeah. Let's move maybe more towards the future, right, René? We covered the release mostly, or do you have more? I mean, the communication part was also a bit strange sometimes. Like we remember the game released on a Friday, on a Tuesday, I think, or on a Monday, and creators and media got access to the build already on the week before, and then we were told like, yeah, you can show gameplay, you can show impressions on the weekend, but without a review score. And then we got the tweet from Ian Bell telling us, hey, the build that you see out there on YouTube is not the build that will be that it does not have the day one patch, and the day one patch will have the best AI that I've ever seen in sim racing, and all those claims. And that was so disappointing also on a human level for me, that it just didn't work then for the release version, and we delayed our review to review the day one version, and it was not a big difference from what we had on the weekend. So that was also that part. So like marketing communication also went a little bit in the wrong direction, I would say, with the release.
I don't know how to answer that. Let me just gather up what you just said. We were still working on the game the weekend after. I didn't actually sleep from the Friday after your colleague in Gamer Muscle had the performance problem and we found a bug. And I asked him midstream to open up a log file, and my face dropped, right? Because what I seen was certs going everywhere. Yeah, like there was script failures happening, and what turned out was a settings thing that we went in, and we had to go through and we had to go to figure out what went wrong because we'd missed something, and we got it all in. And when Ian was doing that tweet, it was because he felt there was something different there. Yeah, and we then just went a bit too aggressive on certain things because, as it says, over the weekend, then went in some of the force feedback stuff. And we did have like seat of the pants. This is, are we actually for real actually still making a build? Yeah. One day before, because we were like really pushing the envelope at that point. What happened with the AI, if I'm honest with you, is that the AI was aggressive. We got used to it being aggressive. And it is great fun at 90 and it's aggressive and it's making you push the track limits, right? But you see, when we're driving and we're driving the way we were driving and we're being aggressive and and the AI is being aggressive and it forces you off the track, and then the penalty system kicked in and give you penalties, it actually made the AI seem worse for it because you were getting penalized on the double. You were getting penalized for going off the track and you were getting penalized by the AI pushing you off the track. Yeah. And you got to remember also the AI works off the same physics as the as the player. So it was, it eats up a lot more CPU. It's not the AI that's eating up the CPU, it's the physics that eats up the CPU. Yeah, and we're going to have to improve upon that. So I genuinely don't know about the tweets that Ian does. I just smile because what I find with Ian is he's very passionate and he wants everyone to have joy. I think that there's a persona there of him being something that he's not. Now, we can agree to disagree on that, and I'm sorry. I can only apologize for myself if you feel that that wasn't on that there was something misleading, but I don't think it was ever his intention. I think he was trying to do two things with that statement, which was like, guys, give it a chance. There was bugs, and then the second thing he was trying to do is also just, you got to remember at that point, the team is important to me, and people see that, and your world can get absolutely destroyed by just a comment on a YouTube channel when you're in a highly emotional state, yeah, which you would be at crunch. But I don't feel he was wrong on that. Yeah, the AI is really, it's different. We leaned in on something different as well, and again, comes back down to the bullet holes. Like the penalty system was so, it was so penal, yeah, that it really compounded the AI being even, harsher. And then I'll be honest with you, there was one other thing that kind of crept in when we fixed all the fast mass stuff as well. We kind of had a situation where we were so, as I says, trying to fix that silver bullet. We made the collisions on the cars where they kind of turned into tanks a little. Yeah. So you'd hit the AI car and it would send you flying. And we didn't realize, I can't say didn't realize. Some people had seen it, and some people were we were tired, and we didn't notice it. So we've been working really hard, and it's been kind of sorted out since. But you definitely felt that if you think of those three elements, one, where the AI was being way too aggressive towards you, yeah. Two, if the tire model was just a little off every now and then, you know what I mean? Then the AI was pushing, it would lose grip and spin, which you want to see happen sometimes as well, yeah. We did have a couple of problems when it came to Daytona. I just remember the banking, come off the bank, go, and then the first chicane after, and it would always seem to find its way into the tire wall, right? And then you've got all the variants of all the different weather, yeah, and then the rain, and it just, maybe there was too much grip on the cars on the AI then as well, especially then when you got into collisions. So it wasn't the AI itself that there was a problem. It was everything else that gave the perception, and it was the small, as it says, the wrong bullet holes we were looking at. I know I'm trying to explain it. I'm sorry. I'm trying to explain it, and I'm not trying to say that you're wrong, because that's the one thing you're not. And we've done a lot of work to improve it. We just had to actually understand. We had to listen to the community to understand these things. The most obvious little thing that went in almost a couple of weeks after launch was the radar. Yeah. You know, I know it sounds silly, right? But it's like, oh no, we kind of even got a little mantra going, oh no, we're hardcore sim. You wouldn't have a radar in real life. You're sitting there going, it's still, it's still a sim. Do you get me?
Marcel now sits somewhere and says like, and I always said no to starting lights in R Factor 2.
Yeah, but
Um,
but it happens, doesn't it?
aside from that, also like we talked a lot about how the cars felt and the force feedback and all of that,
Yeah.
and performance. We touched performance. I think performance is still not great. I run it on my system on a single screen, and still I have a 4080 Super that should be, and an AMD 5800X 3D. It should be enough to run a game on medium to high details nowadays, and it really doesn't. I get 60 FPS sounds okay, but actually a sim racer wants maybe 90, 100, and it's still
120,
other
yeah.
titles perform better in that sense. So I think there's also more optimizations to come.
There's more optimizations coming, and they'll be coming thick and fast. It's one of these things now that we learned our lesson from trying to throw so much in at launch, that I think we've shown over 8 patches that we're, you know what I mean, that we're committed to doing things right. So on the optimization front, there has been a lot of optimizations. We actually screwed up one of the patches just after Christmas because we'd actually got to a place where people were getting 240 FPS, right? But our physics heartbeats run at 180, and we put a limiter in to make sure it limited at 180 just so we could get around certain things. Well, we fixed it, and it accidentally broke and limited everybody to 30 for about 4 hours. So we had to do another patch, right? So that lesson actually, it sounds silly, taught us that we need to make sure we test things more and more and more. So when it comes to the performance, right, there's 3 elements, okay? So there's the physics, audio, and rendering, right, on the CPU. We found a bug recently when it comes to the inputs, right, that was causing clashes on higher end PCs that would slow the physics down, and that'll be in the next build. It's going through testing, which should hopefully help when it comes to the perception. Our physics always runs, right? Our heartbeat always runs at 180 heartbeats, yeah, and our physics for the player vehicle is always at 720. That doesn't matter what the game rendering is doing, okay? Your physics is always there. What I'm always keen to hear about is when people say their frame rate is going down, is the perception of how fast their car is moving. If it's changing, I need to know about that. Get on our Discords, tell us, because we found like different things with different devices where we'd getting driver saturation, and then it would block. Or some devices had, that might have LED screens or telemetry screens. They actually blocking on the main thread, and there was actually just one contentious point that would block the physics thread, and we fixed that. If someone is experiencing that, I really need to know about it, because we will get them fixed, and we'd be able to, because sometimes what it is, it's just a case I need to get that piece of hardware and try it. The second thing is, yes, on the rendering front, there is there's a CPU bottleneck, so there is, okay, in the submissionist stuff, right? I am actually personally working on fixing that, right? I'm really excited about what I'm doing. I'd love it's kind of like a GPU submission system. I shouldn't talk about it too much. I'll nerd out and we could spend next 4 hours talking about it. But I'm hoping when we put that in, that is the pathway. So it is to bringing the performance back on the CPU, and for someone who has a decent graphics card, elevating that CPU, that performance, because I don't feel that it's on the right now. Caveat with that is I don't feel right now that the GPUs are the problem. It's that our submission on the CPU side, and we see it's another silly thing is that we have all standard computers. You know what I mean? So we kind of missed that just a little, and we're addressing it, right? Like I can tell you now that one submission process test that I had went from 14 milliseconds down to 6. That makes me excited. That means I'm doing stuff right now. But again, what I want to make sure we do is do it right and actually get it fully tested, okay? Because we did a patch where we thought we got something really class sorted out, and we actually realized that we broke DLSS, yeah? And then we had to come back, and it sounds silly. We are very aware, but what we want to do is make sure we have release discipline, that we don't make things worse on anybody. Yeah. And the problem with that is like that thing I just talked about. Got all working. It's lovely. It says I'll check it in. And then I have an AMD card and it's crashing on me. I'm like, gosh. And I spent like the next 16 hours trying to figure out what I'd actually bust. But there's definitely work that we're doing on it. And that's the pathway. And I'm sorry, I know that you guys probably are keen to talk about this, so I'm going to do it for you now. This is why I haven't turned around, and this is the pathway that brings me to VR and triple screen. Okay. In order for me to be able to do VR and triple screen, I need to be able to bring the CPU submission lists down to an acceptable level to allow me to do it. I know that the people that are passionate about racing like that, right? Myself, when I do it, I love VR because I put this thing on and I don't feel like everything's invading. I love VR for that reason, right? I've tried the wide screens, I've tried it, but I like being able to just subtly move my head to look. I always feel a little claustrophobic in cockpit camera, right? Whenever I'm racing, unless it's an open wheeler, I'm on bonnet view, because I can't handle the cockpit. That's just a personal preference, right? But when I'm in VR, I absolutely just love it because, you know, I don't feel claustrophobic. I know it's weird when you put VR kit on and you say that, but that's the way it makes me feel when I play. But if you think about it, you got your main scene, so you've got to basically render out to two eyes. So you have two submission lists, yeah. And if I already know I'm CPU bound, what am I going to do if I release something that I know that's not going to be where it is? And I think I remember saying something at Sim Racing Expo that VR is too important to get it wrong. And I prefer for people to turn around and say, "Oh, you don't have VR," than give a shitty VR experience. Yeah. That's just where I am, and that's a personal thing, right? We're going to be looking into it, and but we know where we have to address first. What we felt was the most important thing to address was making sure that the physics. The word acuity gets used a lot, but basically the physics feel felt right for people, and we wanted to get that feedback now while it's hot and heavy at us. And we're working on the performance, and we're working on the lighting, and we're reimagining the lighting, by the way, for version 2. So we have our update 2.0. We've got new lighting, so we have, along with new UIs, along with new things in the career mode. So the short answer is yes, we have a lot of work. We are committed to getting all of that work done. I'm almost taking it on myself. With obviously, I've got a good team of people around me as well, but I get obsessed with certain things, and you just hit on something that I'm currently obsessed about. So I am. I could show you on Razer right now if you really want. We could. Our terrain shader is just, you know what I mean? It's doing. Their terrain shader is awesome, right? Because it has true to track, yeah, and it does this physics simulation. So it does on the GPU. So it does to distribute all the water, and you know the marks and everything, and get all the grip level, and then sends it back, yeah. But it's great, except that when you go and do it, and then you have to sample, you obviously want to put that how wet the road surface is on the terrain, and you're sitting doing that, and then you're going, it's sampling here, and that's taking 200 microseconds. I can't have 200 microseconds. Does anyone really notice? And the problem is, you do, and it's a killer from it because you do notice. You know, you need that puddle there. You know, if that puddle doesn't look right, you want to say, "Oh, well, I drove over the edge of the puddle and there wasn't a puddle there," because you're going to get. It sounds weird. It's like an aliasing because you can only have so much resolution, and then you try to blur it, and then you can't really do that because you don't get the puddle forming right. And I'm just sitting there going, but if I just got rid of that, that's like, you know, that's all of my performance problems to do with that gone away. Yeah. And I just can't do it because, you know, it's there. Sorry.
No worries. It's always good to hear about that, right?
Questions like this.
And no, I mean, I said I worked for Alpha 2 before. I always like when people are passionate about what they're doing, and I think sometimes we need to remind ourselves also within the community that all of this is way more complex than it sounds in comments, right? Fix this, do that. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. But maybe
I have a favorite comment, which is somebody turns around and says, "Oh, well, obviously their engine is a multi-threaded." I just look at that and go, where do you even start with that? You know, how do you unpack that statement? Yeah. Right? Anybody that's ever done engineering knows it goes as simple as this. You're only as fast as your slowest part. Yeah. So you start there and then you worry about the rest.
In general, the feature set of the game, and we can also make a transition to the career mode maybe, because I just saw this morning when I checked the Steam achievements, only 4.3% of players have completed 5 races in the authentic mode. That's not really a lot. And there's also much more stuff missing, like flying starts and all of that. And we also we touched upon the rule set of a race and the penalty system. I think you fixed that already a little bit, whereas it doesn't give you an additional plus 5 seconds anymore, but you can gain the time back by slowing down and stuff. So that's already
And that 5
very
seconds
helpful.
win.
Yeah, but yeah, maybe the transition to career mode. It was one of the core features of the game. Like it was the most hope that people had. Hey, finally a great sim racing style career mode. But it was on the front end, it looked more interesting than it was actually. Also, if we look at this statistic, so is there anything planned to revamp some of it and to give people more features like flying starts?
So, flying and rolling starts are coming at some point, right? They're not coming. Again, it's we have to make sure we do things in a good way. Rolling starts are hard, right? We're going to get them. We know what we need to do. We know how we need to do it, and we need to execute it in a good manner, right? Because obviously and it's essentially, put in flying starts. Well, now you have to put in UI menus to say how you want the race to start.
Yeah.
Then you have to put it all into the career modes. Yeah. Then you've got, obviously it changes how, the hypercars will work in certain scenarios. Okay. In fact, if we'd probably went with that, it would have been really nice because it would have stopped a load of our hypercars stalling. You know what I mean? But so yes, on that, right? The career mode, we had envisioned it being maybe it's because we're old, right?
What do you mean with we?
Well, me, right? Maybe. When I play games, when we play when we were young, when I was younger, it was like Sonic and all the rest, and you play it and you failed, and then you start the level again. You had to go and do it again, and the same with Mario. And we wanted to lean in on that a little, right? So it was like our game was like, no, you failed. You have to do it. You have to go again. Yeah. It's not like if suddenly gives you an aid and you can restart from where you were, and So with the authentic mode, what we were trying to achieve was, you have turned around and says, hey, you've committed to doing this race. You have to finish it. There's no restarts. There's no second chances. You have to feel that sense of danger of you can't just go into that corner, go gun ho. If you lose it, you lamp your car. Sometimes second place is good enough. Yeah. Just like it would be in real life. And we were trying to lean into that. And I think that we did, right? I really do think that we got that essence, right? But again, a little bit with the AI being too aggressive didn't help. But it was meant to be like a horror sim, survival. But I think what we missed out of it was the lack of connection that we were given to the player. Yeah. The lack of reward afterwards, so silly things like you didn't really collect trophies. You know what? Great. You won a championship. Yeah. You didn't see the statistics on your Hall of Fame. Yeah. Which we have now. Now we have a podium sequence, right?
I mean, we were talking about easy stuff like what Project Cars 1 and 2 had this, you sign a contract where there was this graphic of the contract and you put your signature on and stuff like that, right?
Well,
like
yeah, but we
little things that made it feel like alive.
We didn't do a good enough job with the front end screens to explain what the sponsorship model meant and the impact of the ideas you had. Yeah, there was no real reward at the end. So like once you to complete our careers, you literally win 15 championships, and then everything else is unlocked. The economy goes, and then it's about, can you actually complete it? Yeah, can you finish everything? We have longer term plans for a completely new career, long way down, where we're going to dedicate a lot of time to it. So we are. But what we've been doing now is just making the progressive changes to try and make somebody feel like it is their career and there's a bit more connection to it. Does that make sense? Because what it was before, okay, yeah, I've done a career. There was no earned money. I don't need to earn money if I want to race a race. I just go and do a quick race. Yeah. So we know we've done stuff to try and make it you feel more connected to the career mode. Yeah. And there'll be more reward for it. And we plan on doing more and more iterative things longer term to improve the player's experience. But one of the things is it's really interesting is that you got to remember that there is people that have played the career mode, and you're only looking at statistics probably from Steam. I should have said. You were looking at statistics, but it doesn't lean on what's going on the console, where a lot of people are. And then authentic is meant to be the extreme. It is meant to be there, so it is. And the other thing is also, you know, getting them to set their AI. Maybe we need to look at that as you go through the divisions. And we're looking at things now, and we're seeing it, but we need to version or update 2.0 is going to be the baseline in which everybody, I hope, is saying they're enjoying their game, and then giving us this type of, you know, really good feedback that we can then, that doesn't have that hint of anger also. Yeah.
I would like to quickly talk about like, not the definition of long term. I don't want you to admit now when you think all of that will happen, but obviously when you released and the release wasn't great, the community thought like, all right, you know what, that's it, right? The title will just disappear, studio will disappear, and we will never see any updates. Then we have to say we had a lot of updates very early on, right? There had been patches, there had been hot fixes to get everything underway. So you guys are still around, which in general is always a good news for our hobby, right? We don't want passionate people to just disappear or studios to disappear. But where's all of that going? Like there's still people within the community, and we see the comments, and which is why we have this interview, right? To react to what will happen in comment sections. Obviously there were people like, okay, you know what? This is a scam. We're not even going that direction, because I think that doesn't ever work for projects like this. But they said, all right, it will die. There will be no further patches. But you guys patched it. Then we had people saying, yeah, but then they will probably just do the next game, just like Project Cars 1 had Project Cars 2, while you are now talking about version 2.0, right? What is the overall plan? Like you dedicated this title, and now we're talking about a title that lives multiple years? Or are we talking about you guys trying to fix this now within, whatever, 24 months, right? To have an acceptable product to move on to a new product?
That's a really, really brilliant question. One that, right, where do I start? 2 weeks ago, what happened? Project Cars has been completely delisted, and the servers are gone down.
Yeah.
Right. Why did I bring that up? Because we are now looking at the last 15 years of my life, and you can't buy a game I've made, and that breaks my heart. Right.
I have the boxed version, don't worry.
Oh, I have also, but you know what I mean? I'm talking about, you know, I used to have this thing. I know it was silly when my girls, when our game came out, we'd go to the local GameStop or go to Smith's Toys or wherever it was, and we take a picture with the game. Does that make sense? And my kids' friends would ask what I do, and for us, the reason that we partnered with Giants, right, was what you got as a publisher was go look at Farm Simulator, right? Farm Simulator 2011 is still supported and has still got servers up and running today for people to enjoy, right? The biggest problem I think Farm Simulator sometimes has is the level of support that they have for their older game doesn't allow them to move on to the newer one. People wait out years, and I'm not joking. I have done it. Me and my daughters are still on 2019 because one of the mods that we play isn't there yet. And we're actually sitting thinking we might make it for the new game. Now that might sound silly, but it's an important step, right? Will there? I don't know what the future holds, right? Okay. If the product's not viable longer term, I can't really say what's going to happen. I can only give the commitment that I can give right now, right? Which is that I am working my arse off to make this game the best game that it can be. Yeah. And I will keep working my arse off and keep doing that, because whether I like it or not, right? I'm not a millionaire. I don't have a plan B. This is what I do for a living, just like this is what you guys do for a living. Yeah. If I don't have this, I'm going off and I'm getting another job, making something that I will I don't know that I will love as much as I have here, right? I want to be able to, right? When I'm proud of my team, I'm proud of the product that we made. Yeah. But a little bit me felt I wouldn't have went, I make PMR. Does that make sense? I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have felt I couldn't walk into a room and go, yeah, we make, now I do. Now I feel that we have something that I should be able to shout from the rooftops, and I want to be able to do that, and I want it to get better. And I love our competitors. Don't get me wrong, right? As far as I'm concerned, right, I don't want one game to be a monopoly. We need to be all there. We need to be pushing ourselves along, right? Physics, simulation, and these games, yeah, there's no perfect game. There never will be, right? Because that would be goddamn boring. We're always trying to push to the next level. We're always leaning on new things, and sometimes you fail with it. Yeah, sometimes you get it wrong, right? And the only time you fail is when you quit, when you say, "I've done enough," and we're not. And we ain't quitting, right? Because I am not walking away with a game that people will look back on say is a failure. When there was so many good people did so much good things, yeah, and we just got the last little bits wrong. And I think I hope that you guys see it, that the progression that we've made over the last few months with the handling and the tire model and the car and the engine braking, the new turbo that's coming and the traction control and the ABS fixes and the AI changes and these are all they're cosmetics on a really strong foundation that we want to keep evolving. Yeah, I want to get into Project Motor Racing is what we call the game, right? Because we want to get into racing. Yeah. We didn't turn around and say we're a car simulator or we're a racing simulator. We're tracks and cars and we just raw passion. Um, this game is going to have longevity, right? It's not. I don't. We didn't sign with publishers that are going to delist us. Does that make sense? Or that are going to take down our servers. We've committed to also being the only game that has free ranked online and crossplay. Yeah, we're committed to trying to give the value that we have. Right, we didn't go to open beta because we thought that we were in a place with the factory driver program that we were building a closed beta to be able to bring everything to the person when we did it. Yeah, we made a mistake. We leaned in. We read the feedback wrong. But we didn't turn around and we didn't shout and go, "You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong." We listened. We've communicated. We've gone onto our Discord channels and we have took some serious blowback. Some of it is just not fair. Some of it, there's been days where I've just like turned off my computer and not wanted to work. But we've come back and we've had people that we've friends that have moved on and we're still here and we're still fighting it and we don't want to go anywhere. We just don't. The thoughts of going somewhere just not me.
Maybe that's easier than also when we put some of our stuff in, and I always like interviews because there's a chance for everyone to give a personal note, right? As we said in the beginning, we had you guys here, right, back then for our community night, and you were brave enough, and I have to say that back then, brave enough to say, yeah, you can have the build for
Unfiltered access,
for a community night, yeah. And since I know that other people couldn't be here before, but from our experience, and that goes for a lot of people in the industry, because I know that even when I work at Afeka too, I had a lot of thrown at me in comments, right, of how could you do that and why, how could you mess that one up? But you guys were here. We ran into problems with all the hardware we had because we had so much different hardware and all that stuff. And everyone stayed for hours and hours trying to get that to run in a good way. We could have been done earlier, also from our side, just like, oh, you know what? It feels as it feels. Who cares? Let's go home,
so
right?
great that
But
day.
you all guys were here and you made sure that the next day we had proper running rigs for everyone to try out the game. Of course, the game back then was different to what it is now, but I just want to say that as a story from our side, because I think so often in the community, we overlook that there are people behind the products, they're passionate behind
I remember I went out and bought it. I had to go and source it, so I did the SimuCube hub. Yeah, because
the one we had here,
and then we had an Acer Tech set of pedals as well, and oh no, do you know what? But you see, that's the thing I don't think people see. Is sometimes right is, you guys were great. You know what I mean? You could have you know, oh, you could have said so many negative things, but you've helped us fix the problems, and you stayed true to your what you call it. You know what I'm trying to say is you showed an awful lot of integrity. So you did in the fact that you were both honest with your assessment back to us, yeah, but then also in saying, hey, you guys need some help. Yeah, you just didn't have to leave your office open and let us work till what I think it was like 11 or 12 o'clock at night that night. So it was, and me running around with a laptop, like, having a ball at one point because I was, getting to check stuff out that I never got to check out. And then there was SimHub Dash stuff as well there, wasn't there, on one of the wheels? And we're like, we need to talk to him. So we do. And I actually pulled into our Slack and we got all the support ready. So we did for Sim Racing Expo. But like that wouldn't have happened. Like that connection wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the fact that, one, we were brave enough to turn around and do what we did, but two, for you guys to, not abandon us in going, oh, it's not working, we're going to use something else. Yeah. You stuck with us. You said, okay, come on, I can see what you're trying to do here. Yeah. Because you were obviously trying to run an event and it was important for you guys as well that it went well because it was like, I think it was the first, wasn't it? So it was important,
that was
but you
second
one, yeah. But
yeah.
first I was
Third?
out, so.
No, not the third Gamescom, because that can't be true. Second Gamescom event for us.
Yeah, so it was fun. It was fun, and it was great to meet all the other people there as well. And just, there was a thing done at a round table done at Sim Racing Expo with all the other leads as well. And you know what I mean? It was quite interesting. We all have the same pressures. Does that make sense? That we're just trying to get the best thing out we can. And look, I put it towards you this way, right? We understand the feedback that we get because at the end of the day, it's really frustrating when you go to invest your time into something and it doesn't meet your expectation. Yeah. And there's nothing more heartbreaking for us, right? I remember being asked a question about what is it you want? And I want people to get up off a rig or get away from their computer and smile and find joy. Yeah, we all have hard lives. We all, okay, some hard in the world today.
Hey, fuel is nearly €3 for us now. Come on, man.
Yeah,
it's a hard life.
Well, it could be worse. We could be living somewhere else.
That's true. That's true.
What I mean is we all have stresses in our lives, and this is whether we, this is an escape for some people. Yeah, this is like I say it the whole time. Yeah, unless my wife gives me no matter how many hints I give, it's not going to happen. And unless my wife gives me a track day where I get around, I'll never drive a Porsche Cup car, around a major track. I'll never probably sit in one. Yeah, and like that doesn't mean well, how can you make a simulator for it? Like there's an awful lot of things that go into it. Yeah, an awful lot of people, but it's still my passion too. Like all I ever, the biggest flex I ever had in my entire life, right, was at Sim Racing Expo and Gamescom when we got the Audi LMP, yeah, for the display, and I was allowed to touch it. No one else was allowed to touch it, but I was allowed to touch it because I kind of was I was a big deal around here, But I got the, and I swear I got to put a fingerprint on it, and somebody thought, like I don't know, but that was like, and I've done nothing but drive that car. Yeah, and that's my release. Sometimes it's just put my headphones on, sit on that yoke, bang my elbows off the cup holder, because it's silly. It looks great, but it's silly, and just have a release. And then when we get that wrong for people, we understand, because my team are sim racers first. Yeah, they go from making the game to playing other people's games, playing our game, to going and watching track days and watching on telly, to going to track days. Yeah, I had a guy come to me a few weeks ago and going, oh, I need some time off. I'm going to this track day. I'll be taking reference photos. Okay. What can I say? You don't have to take reference. Oh, yeah. I need them for this. Yeah.
So just like, it's all enthusiasts as we are as well. Like we also go track days in Nordschleife and all of that. So Kevin, to bring this closer to closing thoughts and stuff. So what are the big next steps for Project Motor Racing? I think we have what I'm super happy about because I'm a big fan of Japanese sports cars and GT500. We'll have the GT500 DLC, and you also announced now the 2.0 a release for the end of March, so quite soon. And yeah, what are the like 5 core elements that you improve that you will bring to the game?
So there's going to be more improvements to the physics. The physics is constantly evolving. That's always going to keep improving, right? There's actually more improvements coming to the AI. So there's improvements in career mode. So with career mode, there is what's called the AI is going to be more responsive to what you're going to do to try and keep it more competitive, to keep you more connected to the game. There's also more stuff going on about the career mode when it comes to your what's called feeling a connection. We have real life sponsors now in the career mode, which makes it more in tune to what should be there. We're going to have a big push. There is a new modded track coming, so there is as well for free. There'll be obviously some more modded cars coming. They're all free. Okay. We've obviously we've touched upon. Sorry, there's that much coming out that it's. I'm trying to make sure that I don't miss any because I know Alex is going to give out to me.
You're already on 4 points. I was.
Oh, have I?
Don't
Well,
worry.
there's also the UI. Yeah, there's a revamp on the UI. I mean, we have gone absolutely tooltip heavy there, right? To try and explain things because one thing's sorry, I'm going to keep doing these segues. The FFB and all the FFB settings we have. And what I think people there and they're sitting there going through them and not understanding. And we turn around and says, why are the FFB settings for this? Why are the FFB settings for that? And when we found that we put that much in, maybe it would help if we actually explain what the hell is going on to people. Yeah. And we put in settings around, tooltips around when you change stuff in your car settings as well, so people can understand that. So it's not just idly changing stuff. Because what we thought when we talked about accessibility for people, was one of the things I leaned on was that, you should be able to get yourself a Logitech wheel and play on a PlayStation, or a Trustmaster wheel, or a Moza wheel, or whoever wheel you want, play it on the PlayStation, play it on the Xbox, and enjoy it. That's accessibility. I call it accessibility by reducing the barrier to entry. Does that make sense? And then growing it. Like a kid goes and plays football, he needs a football and 2 jumpers and these goalposts. Yeah, and then he builds it up in the stadiums, he gets training and all the rest. That's accessibility. Then the other one is that you've got people on console with the joypads and all the rest. Yeah, they just, so the more you put in, the more you get out. But what we realized,
do you have data on consoles? How many people use the gamepad and how many you use a steering wheel?
We have a lot of little data points. Yes, what we don't really try to do is we don't have too much what's the word, analytics on people, because we don't want to. At the end of the day, to me, it's kind of like a little bit, we shouldn't look. Yeah. It's like, that thing when you get your Spotify and it tells you what music you've been listening to the last year and you find yourself being really cringe. I'm not sure that it's important. We do have data, yes, but it's anonymous, so it is. So people don't we don't know that somebody in this region plays more with this or anything like that, because basically, you got GDPR to worry about when you do things like that. The short answer is yes, we know we have good amount of statistics, so we do. But that doesn't change the fundamentals, which is that it's a physics simulator. Yeah. And if we didn't have the physics, if we don't have the physics right when somebody's using a wheel, we don't have the physics right when they're using a joypad. That's just simple as it gets. Yeah, because they're the same model. It's just there's just a bit more assist in place, so there is to, because you don't have the force feedback on the D-pad. Yeah. Like I don't believe that anybody can lap faster with a joypad than you can with a wheel. It's just impossible. Yeah, so let's not pretend that it is. Yeah,
never say never.
Never. Yeah, true.
There was a Need for
Eventually
Speed Pro on
something.
mouse and keyboard.
I know, but the stiffness in the triggers is cool on the PlayStation. If they could get something on the D-pad, you could be evolutionary. And then obviously after that, we've got lighting changes that are improvement. They're more PBR based for us. More work on the sky. And then we're continuously working on performance. Okay, there's other things that are coming in. We fixed it on the online. We've sorted out license points that are coming in. We're going to look more on what, I don't think it's there, but if you go to a replay, there's a QR code that you can select, and then you can use that QR code to submit what's called complaints when you're in ranked. Yeah. So people have been using Discord and all the rest. You can use Discord. We'll follow up on everything that people give us. But there is a actual system in there in game already. It's been there since launch. We've got license points coming in, which will help encourage clean driving. We've we've improved stability and tenfold on ranked. So we have. So there's a couple of little problems there was with player peers disconnecting. We've anti-cheat coming in place. We've so we'll know if someone's been messing with the physics files and doing bad things and trying to clean that up a little bit more. We already have it. It's more robust now, so it is, and we're continuously evolving there. So we're going to start looking at changing cadence of ranked events a little bit so that people could be in 2 or 3. We have changes that we want, but we want to make sure we get them right, where people, when they're in qualifying, if they haven't got a full lobby, people can join them rather than it all being done at the front. They sound like, oh, that sounds really simple. It's not, because here's the thing, right? You now load in a new car, you're putting something new into the physics simulation. You don't want to degrade the performance of someone who's actually driving around trying to do the qualifying lap. Yeah, because that would be, wouldn't it? So we want to make sure we get it right. We have all the tech. We just have to make sure that we're not interfering with the person there, and that takes a lot of testing. So it does. And then we've got more advancements that will come. So there will, obviously, with the performance, and we've got more advancements. So we have in and around online and the car classes, and we're going to try and get new race types in, obviously. And then we've talked about rolling starts being something that everybody's wanted. And then it's literally listening to the community. We've got new HUD elements, so we have that show signal for the FFB and a little telemetry for people so that they know what their car is doing. We plan to build up a better series with the mods, because at the end of the day, making these cars is difficult. So we plan to fully come out and show people how we built the Hadron files, how we build the tire model, because all of that data is there. It is open for people to do. So I think it's really important that, because the way I look at it is maybe we'll get someone who's really bloody class at it, and we can, that's a really brilliant modder that can make physics that everybody loves, and we can go, hey, you can come in and work with us too. Yeah. That like at the end there, and the reason I'm saying that, and I'm not being this, is a lot of our team started 20 years ago as modders. That's how Sinbin came about. Yeah. That's how Ian came about. That's how it then turned into Straight4. And then, we were all like modding. That's what we did. Yeah. You said it there, Jeff Grammond. Yeah. That game. Yeah. I remember that on my Commodore. And you remember you got the book and you had to type the code to get it in. And that's what got me into computer games. Yeah. And then I kind of evolved from it into Colin McRae Rally. I know, because it was easy to do. And
just saying, I already had a pixelated livery from Audi because I come from an Audi family. So I did Audi liveries for the Microprose Grand Prix series. So I basically already foreseen the 2026 version, because their livery in real life is as bad as my livery back then as a kid.
It's a really great thing about the Giants engine is that the editor and what we wanted to do was, we're going to make the most moddable game ever, right? And when you make a statement like that, you need to be able to back it up, right? That's why we went with Giants. Yeah, that's why Giants it's going to be longer term that the true power of our engine will start to come through. Does that make sense? When you can see that because there's a load of talented people out there that were making mods on Farm Simulator, and can make all these wonderful machines. Yeah. There's no reason why they can't go into our game. I'm not saying that we might have tractor racing in there, but I'm not going to stop it if somebody wants to have a go.
Yeah, it was the first idea that we had back then when we were in Silverstone for the event, talking also to the Giants guys and to Ian. And the first idea was, when will we finally see the first farming machine in a racing sim? So.
But they're mental. Have you seen the torque that they get? They can really rip it up.
Absolutely, yeah. And then make it a feature that you can also have the grass. Like you can use a lawnmower to cut the grass.
My grass is great. I wrote that, by the way. Yeah. But there's it's really important. The other thing that we have that I don't think people have realize right now is all the mods that are made, vehicle mods. You can straight away use them in custom lobbies in races. So if you have made a new car, you can put it in there. Do you know what I mean? It can be in a
Yeah,
custom lobby.
I saw there's an MX5 with a V8.
Yeah,
It's a downloadable mod. Yeah, it's quite
cool,
cool,
isn't it?
Yeah.
And if we think it's really cool and people ask, we'll make a ranked event and we can put the mod into the ranked event now. That was an improvement. That's a change that we made so that we can actually have ranked events that aren't just in our car classes, but therefore, if someone says, "Oh no, yeah, that there is brilliant. We want ranked events on that." Fine, where you go. No, we're trying. You know, there was an expression that someone said, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." Yeah, and when we started at launch, we had so many things that we wanted to do that maybe what we did is we tried to do too much too quickly. Does that make sense? Like we touched on the fact of how many car classes we have and the broad range of stuff. Yeah. And you kind of sometimes think to myself, what if we had shortened that and we'd, released less? Would we have done a better job? I don't know will always be the answer now. I'd love to be able to look at metrics and see. But all I know is that what we have now, we're going to keep working on and improving upon and listening to everybody that says stuff. Yeah. And I would like people to just be a little kind, right? Because when you put a post out or a comment, sometimes the guy that worked on it is reading it. I'd like to finish up with one thing. What I would really want is I don't want us to sound like a pity party, right? Our community, there's a magic to it. So there is. When the community gets together, there's real passion and real knowledge, yeah, that you don't get in any other genre of game, yeah. And I have to say thank you to the people that bought our game, thank you to the people that come to our Discord channel, and even thank you to the people that have turned around and said, yeah, because that doesn't come out. That comes out of two ways, right? One, sometimes it's frustration, but also it's passion, and there is an element there that they weren't wrong and we listened, and I'm hoping that what people see is that we've listened and that we're moving forward, right? And that wouldn't have happened if everyone had just turned off. Do you understand? If everyone just went, "Oh yeah, your game's crap," and didn't buy it, yeah, and said nothing, right? People said something, yeah. People took their time to turn around and go to our Discord channels. They took the time to give us the feedback, yeah, and we're taking the time to make sure we process it correctly and that every person and every little complaint is heard. I have one, like there's a thing, it's some F beast so I'm trying to buy it because somebody had a problem with it. He's got a custom setup, so he has. And I can't for the life of me figure out why it doesn't work because he's using one of those V-Joypad simulate things, and it should be all fine. It should all work with raw input, and I can't for the life of me figure it out. And and he's took the time out to explain everything he's done, talk for several hours with one of our guys. Yeah, that doesn't happen anywhere else. That would be if that was any other game or any other genre, that person would just request a refund and move on. Yeah. So we need to acknowledge that, and and I see it like there's groups going around where they're sharing FFB setups, and people coaching each other, and there's community spawning up where people are having race nights, and because I did a Google search now, my social media feed is completely full now of all these little groups to join, and it's great. It's great to see that. Yeah, some of the feedback can be hard to take. That doesn't mean that it's wrong. Yeah, and and it doesn't mean I don't want pity. Yeah, does that make sense? I want to be part of it again. I love our community. I love working and doing what we do. Either that or I just love the torture of it. I don't know which, but it's kind of like we're a really cool gang and we want to be part of that really cool gang again, but we fucked up and we wanted to go, look, we're sorry. And that's what it feels like right now. And I just want to say, like, for all the people that were there and all the people that give us feedback, it's brilliant. Yeah. And we're listening, we're trying, and we're working hard. And the way I look at it is you don't fail until you quit. You only fail when you stop or something makes you stop. And nothing is making us stop and we ain't quitting.
I think that's actually a great ending to it because we also have to stop. Otherwise, comments will tell us we delaying patches of Project Motor Racing.
They're not like we're in QA today, so we're in big rounds of QA, so we are for version 2.0. And it's we've an awful lot of things coming in this, and I feel it's a good baseline that we'll be able to move forward, and we'll be there at a place where people will be able to turn around and see the progression. And you know what I mean? I fully scheduled for another patch about in a couple of weeks later with performance stuff. Yeah.
Kevin,
And
final question. What's your favorite car right now? What should people try?
Audi LMP. Oh,
The Audi. Okay.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I can't. I'm obsessed. For me, it's the reason I like it is it always just feels like a car you point. Yeah. And I love bringing it around. Now I'm not a great driver, so I always bring it around big wide tracks. But to me it's always the Audi LMP. So I just think we got that right from the start. The other car I love is, do you know the what's it called, the Valkyrie? I love the sound. I love the sound of that car.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
right? If you
V12,
want to treat yourself, put yourself in there. It sounds so different to every other car, and it's just that I never thought it would turn around and say an electric engine would make you feel powerful, because I thought it's a bit of a cop out, and look what's going on in F1. But it's different to everything else. And then after that, I really want to master the Lola, so I do. it's a what you call it? Actually, shit, is that?
Yeah, that was really good from the get-go. Yeah, everyone loved it. Also in Zurich already in the build. So yeah.
And a couple of those little concept cars, the open wheeler concept cars. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm a fan of the open cockpit, but I already explained that, so I did, because it's just I just find it, sometimes that the cockpit view, if you want that. Now, this is how big a nerd I am. And I don't know if you want to put this in, but look what I went and look what I have. And you know what I'm going to try and get?
Well, wait, what was that? What was that?
Tobii eye tracker. I want to see if I can stick that in.
I know that one.
But I don't know if it'll work. I have, but I have what's it called? They got in contact with me, so they did, and I have stuff there. You got to remember, right? We are really, really, really enthusiasts and nerds about this stuff first, yeah, and we have to sometimes bring the discipline in, right? Because I could spend a shit ton of time in that, and that's not really that important. You know what I mean? When if the game's running like a potato, yeah. So
all right, I like I said, I think we stop there. Thank you very much, Kevin, for all the insights and obviously being willing to do this interview. We really appreciate that. It's always great when the community can actually hear it from you guys directly, rather than us just writing about it or saying something in videos. So we really appreciate coming out for that. Thank you.